Well, I'm just sorry that I didn't.
Thank you. Yes, well,
Sorry I didn't come in.
I probably.
I can do it. Believe me.
She's one of my favorite friends, like it all.
My mother.
Yes.
Yes.
And then after that, is kind of like time that we go into budgeting planning. The budget, extends through February and March. But it seems like on one level, just touching with you about the program. For the coming year, I've been so like I love it. And Leslie,
She does not share my sense of humor too much. Sometimes she gets sarcastic.
more ways than the other. So having structure is
Seinfeld.
We're also going to operate with me, but also in some ways not fully, still that
These two kinds of people.
Tuesday, Wednesday, back.
Somebody at the weekend.
So why don't we say this for tentative for the meeting, try not to say off, just and maybe if you have a shoot what that availability.
All right. Which is the best restaurant? Yeah.
Shabbat Shalom.
We liked it so much, he did it again. Okay. How's it going? They don't worry. I can move my own. So I rented it. Well, we did for a few days. Jimmy's not doing that.
I took some time off in November. I'm going on a retreat with in a couple of weeks, so
If I buy a new car ever, it will be this thing. Depends on the size of the car. Depends on how big the car is. There you go.
No, I did, it's not in time.
You have to have me test this list. How about the CD? Automatic
I know it's right there.
No, it's good. I like it. When I drive it, I like it a lot. I think my car, I have a car that I rented. I'm trying to figure out
Memberships are certain that aren't ready to handle
I've never been in this age. I'd like to say something exciting, but no, I'm walking down my driveway. Fell on the ice.
You ready? Shabbat Shalom, everyone. We welcome one another in this community of peace, in this beautiful place. Let's enjoy this Shabbat together.
Nigun to help us just gather in this space, in this moment. Yada-dai-dai-dai-dai.
To those who are with us here in the sanctuary, and to those who are with us here online, we welcome all of you on this Shabbat evening, where we are privileged to honor the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. on the anniversary of his birth. We have a number of resources that we use. For you in the sanctuary, I want to make sure that you have a prayer book, which is the Mishkan Tefillah. We'll be using that extensively. Also in tonight's program, we have readings and worship that we'll be taking from both places. So I hope that you all have both of these important resources. For those of you watching and participating with us online, please make sure that you click on the link that will take you to the program tonight. This is the first time that we are worshiping when we actually don't have a prayer book online, the Central Conference of American Rabbis. Because of copyright purposes, they're not allowed anymore to worship with that online on their flipbook version. So we've offered you a couple of links if you'd like to acquire a copy of your own to worship with us through the Mishkan Tefillah. Otherwise, sit back and relax and be with us as a community of faith and hope and peace on this Shabbat. Our service begins with a song of strength, a song of song, really, on page 647, at the bottom of the page, 647. We begin with Ozi Zimrat Yah, these words from the book of Exodus, expressing the strength that is before us in the God of Israel.
Ozi Zimrat Yah.
Yeshua Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. instructed us in love. During his time on this planet, he taught one lesson, but it had thousands of facets. He reminds us that it is the basest of human reactions to defend oneself against perceived assaults and ideological differences, and that it is the intentional human being, acting as a human being, to love in spite of the assaults, to be, as he put it, a disciplined nonconformist dedicated to justice, peace, and brotherhood. We honor him tonight, and in fact, this whole weekend here in Madison, there are many things happening, and you will see in the program tonight a couple of program suggestions for us as the weekend goes on. He taught us many lessons for helping to perpetuate the inspiration to the struggle for human dignity. Our lighting of Shabbat candles on this night and every Friday evening, and our thanking God for the light that they provide, is our expression of gratitude for the divine hope that they present to us as we confront the obstinate darkness that sometimes consumes our world. As Dr. King reminds us that we must be lights. He said, "Darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that." So we welcome Shabbat into our community by providing our own light. And so I would like to invite Sherry and Paul Sondel to help center our attention on the light that brings strength and peace to our week, the peace of Shabbat. I'd like to invite the community to turn to page 120 in the prayer book for the bracha, for the blessing for the lighting of candles. And this would be Sherry and Paul. This would be these meditations. If you'd light first and then offer the light it. Sometime.
Third time's usually the charm.
My phone. Yeah.
There be light
Thanks.
and not fire.
Wait.
No fire.
Okay. I'm all right. Who can look directly into the light? We can behold only a small portion, a fragment of the light. And when that one light is fragmented, the colors of the rainbow result. So let us give thanks for all the colors that are ours. All of them are part of the one light we are all bathed in, the one light that is our fountain of our life. Blessed is the match consumed in kindling flame. Blessed is the flame that burns in the secret fastness of the heart. Blessed are the hearts with strength to stop their beating for honor's sake. Blessed is the match consumed in kindling flame.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher nishanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadrik ner, shel I invite the congregation to turn to page 4 in the supplement as we begin our Shabbat again by hearing some words of Dr. King and some of the guidance that he offers us. On page 4, we offer this reading responsively. I refuse to accept despair as a final response to the ambiguities of history. I refuse to accept the idea that the isness of man's present nature makes him morally incapable of reaching up for the eternal oughtness that forever confronts him.
I refuse to accept the idea that man is mere flotsam and jetsam in the river of life, unable to influence the unfolding events which surround him.
I refuse to accept the view that mankind is so tragically bound to the starless midnight of racism and war that the bright daybreak of peace and brotherhood can never become a reality.
I believe that unarmed truth and unconditional love will have the final word in reality. This is why right temporarily defeated is stronger than evil triumphant.
I believe that even amid today's mortar bursts and whining bullets, there is still hope for a brighter tomorrow.
I have the audacity to believe that peoples everywhere can have 3 meals a day for their bodies, education and culture for their minds, and dignity, equality, and freedom for their spirits.
I still believe that one day mankind will bow before the altars of God and be crowned triumphant over war and bloodshed.
The lion and the lamb shall lie down together, and every man shall sit under his own vine and fig tree, and none shall be afraid. I still believe that we shall overcome. Kabbalat Shabbat, our receiving of Shabbat, now begins on page 131 in the prayer book. We invite Shabbat by inviting God's messengers, God's angels of peace, to be with us. 131, Shiru Ladonai.
Indeed, and the choir will help us bring this melody into our bones and into our spirits, and if you feel comfortable joining in at any point, you are most welcome. Shir Ladonai, Shir Hadash, Shir Adonai, Kol Haaretz, Shir Adonai, Baruch Shemo, Basru Miyom Le'yom Yeshuato. Shir Adonai, Shir Hadash, Shir Adonai, Kol Haaretz, Shir Adonai, Baruch Shemo, Basru Miyom Le'yom Yeshuato. Saptu Agoyim Yevodo, Bechol Ha'amim Le'otav, Yadol Adonai, U'le'olam Yod, Lo Rafu Al Kol Elohim Ladonai, Ladonai, Shir Hadash, Shir Adonai, Kol Haaretz, Shir Adonai, Baruch Shemo, Basru Miyom Le'yom Yeshuato. Saptu Lagoyim Kevodo, Bechol Ha'amim Le'otav, Yadol Adonai, U'le'olam Yod, Lo Rafu Al Kol Elohim Ladonai, Shir Adonai, Shir Hadash, Shir Adonai, Kol Haaretz, Shir Adonai, Baruch Shemo, Basru Miyom Le'yom Yeshuato, Basru Miyom Le'yom Yeshuato.
And on page 5 in the supplement, we now continue Kabbalat Shabbat with this rendition of Or Zarua.
Which we've sung many times in this community, but not the full necessarily. And I'm always moved by the idea that the English that was written for this prayer was written by young people at a summer camp in partnership with Dan Nichols, with a real message of hope, and as Rabbi was alluding to before, that light that we hope to bring from our hearts out into the dark places in the world.
Simcha Dodi, page 138. Again, we welcome that spirit of Shabbat, that spirit of rest into our community. Page 138, we offer verses 1, 2, 5, and 9 tonight. And on verse 9, we rise and will face the doors, symbolically welcoming Shabbat into our sanctuary.
Shalom, Ateret Ala, Gam Besimcha, Uvitzola, Tov Emunei, Am Segula, Oichana, Oichana.
And on page 140, we have Tzaddik Katamar. It's the indented paragraphs that you see on page 140. The gift of righteousness, which is what we celebrate in Dr. King and which can be in each of us, is something that flourishes like this palm that it talks about.
מזמור שיר ליום השבת. צדיק אתה אמר יברא, כארץ בלבנון מסכן, כתולים בבית אדוני, בחצרות אלוהינו תפריחו, עודנו בשיבה, כשאים ורעננים יהיו להגים, כי ישר אדוני זורי ללא
We now begin to offer evening worship as we recall our own patriarch Jacob, who in that evening that the Bible talks about dreamed of encountering a ladder in his dreams, a ladder with angels going up and down between heaven and earth, flying in both directions, fulfilling the wishes of their Creator. Even on a day of rest such as this that begins now, let us consider ourselves and our missions and our journeys up and down the ladder that confronts us, the ladder of our lives, receiving blessings and giving them to others and struggling to improve our world. Even in the darkness of the night, we offer our prayers and reflections on future actions with the hope that they too will radiate out to others to make the world a more decent place. We invite you to turn to page 146. We invite the community to rise for Barahu, a call to worship, page 146.
ברכו את אדוני המבורך.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed.
ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד.
On page 149, we offer this prayer together as a congregation. At the top, praise to you, Adonai our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai our God, from whom the evening flows.
אל חי וקיים, תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני, המעריב ערבי.
Amen. At the top of page 150, Ahavat Olam.
אהבת עולם בית ישראל עמך, תורה ומצוות חוקים משפטים אותנו לימדת. על כן אדוני אלוהינו בשוכבנו ובקומנו נשיח חוקיך ונשמח בדברי תורתך ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד. ובהם נגד יומם ולילה, יומם ולילה. ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים, ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל.
Amen. Page 152.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Baruch Shem Gevor Alhuto Leolam Va'ed. Please be seated, and we continue at the top of 154 with these words from the book of Deuteronomy about connecting us to God and to Torah and its commandments. Page 154 at the top.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברתם בהם, בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
I'd like to invite you to turn to page 6 in the supplements and to open up page 157 in the prayer book. Hold them on both sides of your laps. Now we think about the message of liberation, the message of freedom. On page 6 in the supplement, we offer this responsively about our connections to one another, and then we will go into Michamocha with appropriate music and introduction. But we read on page 6 in the supplements, let us be cognizant of the interrelatedness of all communities and states. I cannot sit idly by in Atlanta and not be concerned about what happens in Birmingham.
Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny.
Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly.
Never again can we afford to live the narrow, provincial, outside agitator idea. Anyone who lives inside the United States can never be considered an outsider.
Page 157.
Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught. Before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it's eternally Egypt. That there's a better place, a promise night that promise passes through the wilderness, that there's no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together.
Page 158.
Singing, ya, la, 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 ונאמר, יפדה אדוני את יעקב, ויעלום יד חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני, גאל ישראל.
We continue now on page 160 with Hashkivenu, this prayer that is offered for the evening.
Understanding among us, let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Let there be love and understanding Hashivenu, Adonai Eloheinu, Hashivenu, Shalom. V'ha'amidenu, Shomreinu l'chaim, Uvos aleinu, Sukkot Shlomecha, Hashivenu, Adonai Eloheinu, Hashivenu, be our Shalom. Hashivenu, understanding among us. Hashivenu, be our Shalom. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms.
I offer the following further text from Dr. King's letter from Birmingham jail. It contains a little language that, while not used today, was acceptable for its time frame of 60 years ago. He writes this: "For years now, I have heard the word wait. It rings in the ear of every Negro with a piercing familiarity. This wait has almost always meant never. It has been a tranquilizing thalidomide, relieving the emotional stress for a moment, only to give birth to an ill-formed infant of frustration. We must come to see that the distinguished jurist of yesterday, that justice too long delayed is justice denied."
Baruch atah Adonai, ha'porei sukkot shalom, aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim.
Now we enter into a time of what is called tefillah. Tefillah is a Hebrew word that comes from the root, which means introspection in a way. It allows us to look inside and wonder about what we can bring forth, about what miracles we can create in this world, which is sometimes so materially oriented and yet so miraculously created, and is created every day by the things that we do. I wanted to offer some words now from Brian Stevenson, who writes this in his book, Just Mercy. He writes, "Proximity has taught me some basic and humbling truths, including this vital lesson. Each of us is more than the worst thing we've ever done. My work with the poor and the incarcerated has persuaded me that the opposite of poverty is not wealth. The opposite of poverty is justice. Finally, I've come to believe that the true measure of our commitment to justice, the character of our society, our commitment to the rule of law, fairness, and equality cannot be measured by how we treat the rich, the powerful, the privileged, and the respected among us. The true measure of our character is how we treat the poor, the disfavored, the accused, the incarcerated, and the condemned. We have the power to make changes in the world, my friends, and at this time of tefillah, we think about that power that each of us possesses, sometimes in small ways and sometimes in grand ways, to make this world a better place. We invite you to turn to page 164 for the beginning of tefillah. We invite the community to rise. Page 166.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Elohei Avoteinu ve'imotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel Elohei Leah Ha'el HaGadol HaGibor HaNorah El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim Ve'konei HaKol Ve'zocher Chasdei Avot V'imachot U'mevi Geula Livimnei V'neihem Leman Shemo Be'ahava Melech Ozer U'Moshia U'Magen Baruch atah Adonai Magen Avraham Ve'ezrat Sarah.
Page 168.
Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai Mechayei HaKol Atah Rav Lehoshia Mashiv HaRuach U'Morid HaGashem Mechalkel Chaim Bechesed Mechayei HaKol Berachamim Rabim Somech Noflim Berofei Cholim Umatir Asurim Umekayem Emunato Lishenei Afad Michamocha Bal Gevurot Umido Melach Melech Megid Umechayei Umatzmiach Yeshua V'ne'eman atah lehachayot hakol Baruch atah Adonai Mechayei hakol.
Amen. Page 170.
Atah kadosh shimcha kadosh U'kdoshim b'chol yom yehalelucha selah Baruch atah Adonai ha'el hakadosh.
Amen. You may be seated. Dr. King once said that life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are we doing for others? As a challenge and as a direction, we now offer silent prayers as we try to align our lives with the values and principles of teachers who show us how to make the world better. We pause for these moments of silent prayer, and then we will be turning to the supplement on page 6.
inspired by some of the words of Dr. King that Rabbi Beich cited toward the very beginning of our time together this evening. Reverend Delante Golston wrote this piece of music that was deeply inspired by those words. Gratitude to Reverend Golston, Cantor Stombaugh for marrying these words inspired by Dr. King with words of peace from our tradition here as well. This is, as Reverend Golston would say, it is a participatory song, but don't feel that you need to try to join in right away. Let the words come into your ears and into your heart. And when you feel like you are moved to join in, please feel free to do so. I need to change my key. If I did that, wouldn't it? This will be much better for us all. Night cannot drive out the night. Only light, only light. Night cannot drive out the night. Only light, only light. You all can repeat after me. Oh, 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 oh.
Shabbat Shalom. It is now a privilege of mine to introduce our speaker for tonight. But let me tell you a little bit about her before we invite her to the bima. Like so many of us in synagogue professions, Diane Ballweg is a teacher. But she teaches in so many different ways. With her degrees in music, her degrees in education, her work in flying a plane as a private pilot and teaching others to fly. In her work in the community, working on boards, working in organizations that help promote not only this community to help it grow, but also for bringing people together. She has really served as an example to each of us. She's a friend of many people in our community, and I'm privileged to invite her to our bima to speak. Just to give you a few ideas of the organizations with which she is connected. She is connected with the Wisconsin Youth Symphony Orchestra, the University of Wisconsin School of Music Board, the National Committee for the Performing Arts at the Kennedy Center in Washington, the Goodman Center Girls Incorporated Initiative, Porchlight, Madison College, Overture Center, Madison Children's Museum Board, the Madison Community Foundation, and the Fund for Women. She also travels and she bikes. She has been to all 7 continents, swum in all four oceans, been to 53 countries, and she has landed, again in her flying experience, at 340 different airports and logged flight time on 5 continents with about 2,000 hours. But again, she teaches us a lot. Diane, I have to tell you that one of the things that impressed me so much about your biography were some of the words that guide your life. I want to share them with the community because I think that, again, through the words that inspire you, you inspire us. On the back of her calling card, it says, if you have to decide whether to have more or to be more, always choose to be more. That is why we are called human beings, not human havings. Mother Teresa says, alone we can do so little, together we can do so much. Mother Teresa also said, sounds like Mishnah, the rabbi also said, we cannot do great things on this earth, only small things with great love. Ruth Smeltzer speaks to her commitment to philanthropy. You have not lived a perfect day, even though you have earned your money, unless you have done something for someone who cannot repay you. Neil Armstrong inspires her with these words, we are not passengers on this planet. We are all members of the flight crew, and we'd better take care of our home, Mother Earth. She's inspired, too, by these words of Abraham Lincoln, if you're riding a dead horse, dismount. And Diane, I would offer you these words from our tradition, which says that they who are to be honored are those who honor others. And you indeed honor us by your presence here tonight to talk about prisons and to talk about the conditions that we find our country in these days. I want to introduce to you to our congregation, Diane Ballweg.
I'm tired. You said way too much. I don't know where you got all of that. But all of the things that were said tonight were, and in the program and the schedule and the quotes and the words that you gave us, they all kind of fit with what I have to say too. So I'm really glad and I'm inspired by that. I'm going to give a little talk, and it's in 3 parts. In the first part, you're going to say, how does this have to do with racial justice and the judicial system and jail and bail and all that. But it will come back to that, and I did warn you that I was going to give them some of this background. So that's the first part, is you have to just kind of open up your eyes and your ears and your heart and think about it, and then we'll come back to it. The second part, I'm going to talk to your head. I'm going to give you data and statistics, and I'm just going to be rattling it off rather quickly. And then the third part is I'm going to tell stories that I hope will speak to your heart. Because there is another quote, and I love quotes, and it says, the longest trip you'll ever take is the 18 inches journey between your head and your heart. And so we're going to talk to both of those. So I'm going to start with, there is a woman. She's an African-American, a woman about in her 60s, and her name is Sarah Lawrence Lightfoot. She's very powerful, and she wrote a book that you could read. It's called The Third Chapter. And here's why it's called The Third Chapter. Only about 100 years ago, in the 1920s, and this is incredible, only about 100 years ago, there were only 2 chapters to life. 0 to 25 was youth, and 25 to 50 was old age. Sorry about that. But then, the globe had been mapped out, the United States had been mapped out, we had invented steam engines, we'd invented planes, we started to look at assembly line processes, and we were getting very industrial. But what we weren't doing is there was tuberculosis and polio and influenza and all kinds of diseases, and so they started to put their focus on health issues. I remember people that I knew when I was growing up that had polio, and I actually was in a TB sanitarium for a while when I was a kid. But only 100 years later, after researchers and doctors started to do extra work, and that became a focus point. Now, in 2020, there are 4 chapters to life. 0 to 25 is youth, 25 to 50 is middle age, 50 to 75 is called Chapter 3, and 75 to 100 is called old age. But she says, wait, 75 to 100, there's still a lot of people that are that age that are doing amazing, marvelous, lively things. And very soon we'll probably add a 5th chapter to life, because right now, actually a year ago, the average life expectancy for everyone in the United States was 107 years old. That means if you took everybody that was living right now, that would be the average life expectancy. And we gain 3 years for every decade that goes by. So I tell people my age, if you have a grandchild that's born in 2030, the average life expectancy will be 110 years old. And then the amazing thing is that's the average life expectancy, so they might live much longer. So think about that a little bit as we go through the rest of this talk. Last year, I just heard this on the news, was the first year that there were more people over 65 than there were people under 15 in our country. In 1980, only 4% of the United States was over 65. And now it's near 25%. If you live to 65 in the year 2000, if you lived that long, then you had a 25% chance of making it to your 90th birthday. Now, if you live till 65, you have a 40% chance of living to your 90th birthday. So we are still looking at longevity and becoming healthier and living longer. So that's a little glimpse of your lifespan, but what do you do with all those years that you're adding to your life? So here's some other interesting statistics. Statistically, you will sleep about 29% of your life. Are any of them sleeping right now? I'm looking around. No. You will work 11% of your life. You will watch TV for 10%, the same amount that you use on your hobbies, about 10%. And you'll spend 6% of the time eating and another 6% doing housework and house cleaning. And finally, and this is a statistic that they gave me, was you spend about 3% of your life in the bathroom. Probably more for women than for men. So that, if you add those numbers up, that's a total of 75% of your lifetime. So then I say to people, what are you doing with the other 25%? And then to move into the judicial issue,
What if you spent 75 of your life, 75% of it in jail? Or what and how would you feel if 50% of your life was spent in solitary confinement? Because there are people that face that. I do like quotes, and I'm going to end this section with 2 quotes. And the first one is, if you have to choose between having more and being more, always choose to be more. And I had that written down. The other one was, don't aim to be a person of wealth. Aim to be a person of value. Apply that to your life. Okay, now I'm going to rattle off some statistics because I'm talking to your head. You're not going to remember all these, but I think as you hear them, you'll start to go, oh my gosh, and your eyebrows might raise and your jaw might drop, and I hope so. There's alarming data and statistics about our broken, complex, and complicated judicial system. Jail, bail, incarceration, there's way too much that I could never tell the whole story or cover it tonight, but we're going to give you a little taste of it. Dr. Jeff Duncan Andrade said, the greatest weapon of the oppressor is the control of the mind of the oppressed. I think you also spoke to that earlier this evening. In 1972, 300,000 people were incarcerated in the United States. In 2020, that number had grown to 2.3 million. The U.S. has 5% of the world's population, but 25% of the world's incarcerated. Wisconsin, I hate to say this, is the #1 most racially unequal jail system in the country. In our jails, we have 90% of them are Black people. Based on statistical predictions, and this one is hard for me to say too, but 1 of every 3 Black baby boys will be incarcerated. As a lifelong teacher, we're going to look at some school, mental, and educational statistics. Across the U.S., there are more police assigned to our schools than there are guidance counselors. And I checked a year ago when I was studying this. Madison, in our home city, has 1 guidance counselor for every 453 students. Studies show that if a child drops out of school before high school graduation, they are 8 times more likely to be incarcerated, and 68% of all incarcerated males did not graduate from high school. Annually, there are about 3.3 million school suspensions and about 100,000 expulsions, doubling since 1975, but continuing to grow. And Madison is not exempt from that. And the reason that they give is that schools don't want to deal with the problems, and so they pass them on to someone else by telling the kids to leave the school. Adding to this, COVID tripled the rate of depression in our country. 19 million U.S. adults live with depression, and 60 of them never get any help. There's a suicide in our country every 12 minutes. That's 5 per hour and 120 per day. The largest mental health institution in our country is the LA jail, and second is the Cook County Jail in Chicago, and they vie for first place. In 44 states and in Washington, D.C., there are more people, and they use the word serious, there are more people with serious mental health issues in our prisons than there are in hospitals. Over 50% of inmates have serious mental health issues. 60% of people are kept in jail an average of 26 days before their trial because they can't pay bail. And then they're charged a $25 late fee. If they can't pay bail, does that make sense? I told this story at dinner, but the new jail in Madison, Wisconsin, by the designers and engineers, was predicted and estimated to be a $148 million project. I was gone last year. I was a student at Harvard, but I know the Sheriff Kelvin Barrett. I also am in a construction business, is my family business. So I stayed connected and I do go to meetings. I called Sharon Kelvin Barrett because I do know him, he's a friend. And I said, Kelvin, call the designers and engineers and ask them what the cost of that jail is right now, even though we haven't even, put a brick on the ground or built anything or taken anything down. But it went from 148 million. Within days, he called me back and he said, yeah, they told me it's 211 million. Being a fundraiser, and I know many of you are, I'm sitting there thinking, what could we do for 148 million or 211 million that would be far better than building a jail, even though we need it. I have toured it. It's approximately $500,000 to keep an inmate in prison every year. This is just a small taste of advocacy for judicial reform. Sheriff Kelvin Barrett wants to change the name from police force to peace officers. Wouldn't that be nice? You should read Brian Stevenson's book called Just Mercy, or watch the movie. Or turn on, I think you can find it on YouTube, Ken Burns. He's a very famous documentary journalist. He wrote a piece that is a 4-part series called College Behind Bars, and you have to watch all 4 parts. That too would be very educational. So I'm going to wrap up this section with 3 other short quotes to consider. Somebody was sitting at a table at a recent meeting, and we were having a discussion about this, and then they looked at everybody and they said, it's called the Department of Corrections. What are they correcting? And everybody around the table was silent. Somebody else said, we spend more money on post-mortem than we do on the cure. It was another thing to think about. And a famous quote that I have used very often is from Frederick Douglass. Kind of reflects the Dr. Martin Luther King quote too, but Frederick Douglass said, it's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. And I always add the phrase to that, but if we don't repair the broken men, then the cycle just continues. So now I'm going to move on to the third part of my talk, and that is to talk to your heart. And I'm going to tell a couple stories. I hope that this will tie together what we've heard so far. And then I'm going to tie the whole thing together and say, how do you want to spend your life? Wherever you are now, what do you plan to do with chapter 3, the 3rd chapter? And are you a person of value? And what will be your legacy? Will it be kindness or compassion? Those are important things. So my first story is, I know that some of you know Marcia Schooler, and I met Marcia through her husband, Steve Schooler, who was the chair and the CEO of Porchlight that takes care of the homeless. I was the chair of their board. I've worked with them for over 30 years. I chair a lot of their building projects and construction projects. I had gone on a tour of the jail, and I've been working with incarcerated people, and I went to the Porchlight office where Carla Tennis is now the new CEO, and I was having a conversation with her in the lobby. People live there, and there are people always sitting around in the lobby, and I often talk to them, but this was kind of a private conversation with Carla. And all of a sudden, a woman got up that was sitting by the wall. It was a big black woman, and she came right in our faces. And I don't want to scare you, but she pointed right at me, and she said, I know exactly what you're talking about when you talk about jail. She said, my parents were both in jail, and I didn't know where I was going to get food. And she said, and then I stole some food because I had to eat, and they threw me in jail too. And they said, as long as you're here, and she was a teenager, do you want to get your GED? And she thought, I might as well. I don't have anything else to do. So I got a teacher. They assigned a teacher. And then she looked at me and she said what was most powerful. She said, and that teacher was the first person that believed in me. And that's the first person that gave me hope. And now I live at Porchlight, and I have neighbors, and they treat me like a human being. And those were her words, and that was really powerful to me. By the way, do you know what the average age of a homeless person is in Madison, Wisconsin? And I look at people and say, not in Chicago and not in New York and not during the Depression. Do you know what the average age of a homeless person is in Madison? Shout out a number.
16.
9. I have a hard time not crying when I say that, but it's interesting to think about. Okay, the second story, and Rabbi Jonathan told you I was a teacher my whole life. I do have other things, but I'm a teacher. So I was at a business conference, and it was at the Fluno Center down at the university system. And it was family businesses, and almost everybody there knows everybody else there. So there was a group of businessmen, and they were standing during the intermission that we had, the break, and they were talking about what they pay for salaries and administrative and management fees of their business. And of course, you know, it was good size, big salaries. And they all know me, and they know that I'm a teacher. In fact, I was a part-time teacher. And they looked at me, and they kind of smiled, and they said, "So, Diane, what do you make?" And they were meaning salary. And I rolled my eyes, and then I looked at them, and I said, "I make a difference." And they did just what all of you did, and they went, "Yeah." I taught aviation for the last 20 years at Edgewood High School. I heard from 3 students this week that are in the Air Force. One got chosen to be in the Blue Angels, the top flying squadron in the country. One's a captain for American Airlines. And that's just like 1 week. I hear from them all the time. That's better than getting a paycheck. So, the third one is, I went to the Female Detention Center in Milwaukee, and they have an art studio there. So they do treat their female residents humanely. They have a beauty parlor where they teach them beauty skills and manicures, pedicures, how to cut hair and all that, but they also let them share their self-expression through art. And there was one poster that was a painting on the wall that stuck with me. And that poster, which was made by a woman that was in this detention center, said, "I needed a hero, and I couldn't find one, so I had to become one myself." Mother Teresa, I'm going to end with the quote, said, the true hunger in the world isn't for food, it's for love. Kindness is the most valuable currency. And Henry James, and I have shared this with my grandchildren, Henry James said there are 3 things that are most important in human life. The first is to be kind. The second is to be kind. And the third is to be kind. Sometimes I feel that all the duties and responsibilities that I'm facing are overwhelming, and I kind of take on too much, and the challenges can be too much to handle. But then a friend smiled and said to me, I'm looking at you down there, said to me, sometimes when you feel buried, you are really just being planted. Make roots then and bloom and grow and blossom. Thank you for this wonderful opportunity. I hope that you're motivated and inspired to do something valuable with your life.
Thank you, Diane. Diane will be with us at the Oneg Shabbat, and so please don't crowd her, but she'll be here to answer questions and to continue to inspire us. I think that her message is about the love that we can feel toward one another and toward humanity. And whether we have grand ability or even small ability, each of us has the ability to make changes in ourselves and in others. We now would like to invite you to turn to page 371 in the prayer book. We offer prayers of healing and wholeness for people whom we know about and people that we don't know about, people who need special care and special concern and special attention.
We know that when a person understands that a community is praying on their behalf, like a community like this one, that allows them to grow, it allows them to incorporate more of the healing powers that God has placed within us all, and hopefully allows them to heal faster from their illness and from their injuries. We also know that there are situations where there are terminal illnesses. And in those situations, we also know that a wholeness needs to come to those families and those communities. And we hope that a wholeness will indeed come. On our healing list here at Temple Bethel, we have maybe 80 people whom we are saying prayers for at this time. But even in the hearts and minds of those who are sitting here tonight, you also have individuals for whom you are praying, individuals whom you know about who could use a prayer of peace and healing and wholeness. And now I invite you, if you would like, to offer names of people whom you are thinking about who could benefit from our prayers. And you can just call them out as you think of them.
Leslie Grant, Andy Johnston.
By Miriam Beich. Are there others whom we're thinking about? God, dear God, aloud and in our hearts, we name those facing illness and pain. We join our prayers to the prayers of all who love them. On page 371, at the middle of the page, that indented section. Mi shebera avoteinu mikor habracha le'imotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Isheberach imotenu mekor habracha lamotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. Our lives are made holy by us gathering in community and by thanking God for the blessings of this day of rest, which allows us to regenerate our own internal spirits to face the world and all its challenges. We offer Kiddush at this time. It's on page 123 in the prayer book, and we join the cantor who will be leading us in Kiddush for this Erev Shabbat.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho ve'ahava u'ratzon inchilanu zikaron le'maaseh v'reishit ki hu yom techila le'mikraei kodesh zecher letziat Mitzrayim Ibanu v'acharta ve'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim v'shabbat kodshecha ve'ahava u'ratzon inchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai
Mekadesh HaShabbat L'chaim. We continue our worship on page 586 with Aleinu. Page 586, we invite the community to rise. Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon ha'kol, ha'tehin la'yotzer Breshit, shehu noteh shamayim v'yoseh haaretz, u'mosha b'karo hashamayim mima'al, u'shiyatu zot v'govei Elohim, u'Eloheinu ein od. V'anachnu korim u'mishachavim u'modim b'fnei melech malchei hamachim hakadosh baruch hu. Please be seated. We continue together at the top of page 591. Please join me. May we gain wisdom in our lives, overflowing like a river with understanding, love each of us for the peace we bring to others. May our deeds exceed our speech, and may we never lift up our hand but to conquer fear and doubt and despair. Rise up like the sun, O God, over all humanity. Cause light to go forth over all the lands between the seas, and light up the universe with the joy of wholeness, of freedom, and of peace. V'ne'ema be'aya Adonai le'melech al kol ha'aretz hayom habu hayom habu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo u'shemo I'm offering a meditation on page 592. The poet writes, "When I die, give what's left of me away to children and old men that wait to die. And if you need to cry, cry for your brother walking the street beside you. And when you need me, put your arms around anyone and give them what you need to give me. I want to leave you something better than words or sounds. Look for me in the people I've known or loved. And if you cannot give me away, at least let me live in your eyes and not in your mind. You can love me best by letting hands touch hands and by letting go of children that need to be free. Love doesn't die. People do. So when all that's left of me is love, give me away." At this sacred moment, we call to mind those who died in recent days connected to our community and many others, and those whose Yahrzeit occur at this time, the anniversary of their passing. As we remember them, we think about what they did for our lives, how they allow us to live better, how we stand on their shoulders that permits us to see farther and to do more with our own lives. If you are tonight attending and you are in mourning or you are observing a Yahrzeit, we invite you to rise as the name of your loved one is recited, and then you'll be joined by the whole community as together we recite the mourner's Kaddish. Tonight, the recent deaths connected to our community. We remember a dear member of our community. We remember Lois Stoller. And those who are connected to our community through family relationships, Judith Silk Sherman, Bernard Kaufman, and Ruth Zaidband. And these are the Yahrzeit that we observe at this time. In continuing dedication, we remember Rebecca Barvin, Helen Bolleton, Maxa Day Frank, Sherman Dutch, Diane Fernandez, Esther Flexier, Elise C. Goldman, Betty Henkin, David G. Hansen, Ruth Harnett, Richard A. Heilprin, Myra Laufer, Bernard Lipman, Betty Pines, Jack Radwin, Ruth Rubin, Susan Shapiro, Fanny Brumfer Siegel, Jerome Citrick, Norma Sondler, Jerome Sorkin, Joy Spar, Albert M. Suckle, Henry C. Sweet, Leo Wendell, and Eugene J. Wilk. These are the people whom we know about. There may be people in your family who also are remembering loved ones. You may be remembering a loved one yourself tonight. And if you would like to offer the name of your loved one and add their name to our Kaddish list, you are invited to do so.
Jack Gustafson.
Others we need to be remembering tonight. Zipronam livracha, may their memories be blessings in our hearts and the hearts and minds of all those who knew and loved them. Testifying to the faith then that binds the generations of our people together, we want to invite you to turn to page 598, and we rise as one community to offer the words of the mourner's Kaddish, thanking God for the privilege of sharing life with those who inspire us. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, be'alma divrach hirutei ve'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon u'vyomechon u'v'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'vizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shemei rabbah mevarach le'alam u'lalmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal, shemei dekudsha richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imeru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imeru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imeru amen. May God send peace to all who mourn and comfort those who are remembering loved ones on this night. And we say, amen. Please be seated. Our service is about to conclude, and when it does, we are all invited to the Weinstein Community Court, where we will be hosted for our Oneg Shabbat by Paul and Sherry Sondel in honor of their recent 50th wedding anniversary. Friends, we thank you so much for your generous gift tonight. We want to thank Diane Ballweg, who shared her wisdom with us and her experience and her words about giving love to people. I think that is what you were talked about, Diane. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. I want to thank our choir who sang so beautifully tonight. They are here the second Friday of every month, so be here with them. Thank you, Ted Reinke, our accompanist musical tonight. Thank you, Cantor Nami, for being a wonderful Bima partner and clergy partner. I appreciate you so much. And for you all who came tonight, we thank you as well. There are announcements on the back of the program tonight. I won't review them. Just to remind you that the temple office is closed Monday in observance of Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And so be sure to be with us throughout these days. There are also, as I mentioned earlier, there are in the program a couple of events that are happening this weekend. Where did they go? There they are on page 3 of the program. There are a couple of events that are happening this weekend that you should be aware of, as well as many other events in our community honoring the legacy of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Any other announcements that we need to make tonight?
I think that we can talk about the 27th next time we're together.
Next time. Yeah, I think so. We can talk about it tonight.
Sure.
Yeah, that's all right. Go right ahead. Oh, I'll talk about it.
Sure.
All right. So, after you. So, some of you who are members received email today, you saw email today, I should say, to remind us that we are losing a staff colleague. in the middle of February, and that is Nicole Jar, our Director of Lifelong Learning. 2 weeks from tonight, on January 27th, we will be honoring her in Shabbat services with song and with music and with food. And so please, we invite you to join. The Community Education Committee is helping to sponsor that night. So please join us as we celebrate Jewish education. She's going to a wonderful job in her native town of Detroit, and so we are giving her a send-off. And so we're sad to be seeing her go and saying goodbye, but we're so happy for her. So please join us 2 weeks from tonight. And then join us next Friday as well for services at 7:30, Shabbat Midor Lador. So please join us for that as well. Before we offer a closing song, which you actually have the words of on a separate sheet of paper in the supplement. On one side is Dr. King's image. On the other side are words for I Have a Voice. I want to remind us that this week we observe the 1-year anniversary of the Colleyville synagogue hostage taking. And luckily, not a loss of life among the hostages. And I want to offer a prayer of peace that was written by Rabbi Citron Walker, who has inspired us this year with his acts of wisdom and courage in the face of true danger. He writes this, and I think Dr. King would agree with these words. In a world that's broken and shattered, plagued by indifference, falsehood, and corruption, we feel the uncertainty, we feel the pain, and we are not helpless. God, we pray for peace, for wholeness and healing, for safety when violence touches us all. God, we pray for peace, for justice and compassion, for acceptance in the face of hatred. We will not be held hostage to hopelessness. We pray for peace. We struggle for peace. We bring peace. We will be whole. Dear God, help us be whole as we pray for peace.
We've offered this song here in this community a number of times, but it feels particularly poignant this evening, thinking about the ways that we can use our voices as we're using our voices in this space, use our voices as we might be needing to use our voices out in the community, but then also letting that voice become other action. And that we do have the capacity, as Rabbi, remind me, Citron Walker said, we are not helpless. So I Have a Voice you find again on the opposite side of, incidentally, a picture of Dr. King using his voice.
And you have it online as well, by the way.
If you're online, it's on page 8 of the supplement. All you have to do is repeat after me for a bit. I will open my eyes.
I will open my eyes.
I will not look away.
I will not look away.
I will use this gift I've been given every day.
I have a voice. My voice is powerful. My voice can change the world. I have a voice. My voice is powerful. My voice can change the world. Change the world.
I will give of myself.
I will give of myself.
I will reach out my hand.
I will reach out my hand.
I will use this spark I am given
to take a stand. I have a voice. My voice is powerful. My voice can change the world. I have a voice. My voice is powerful. My voice can change the world. Change the world.
מלך העולם שעשנו, שעשנו בצלם אלוהים. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו, מלך העולם שעשנו, שעשנו בצלם אלוהים. I have a voice, my voice is powerful, my voice can change the world. I have a voice, my voice is powerful, my voice can change the world. Change the world. I will fight for the truth. I will fight for the truth. I'll stand up for what's right. I'll stand up for what's right. I will use this strength I've been given to be a light. I have a voice. My voice is powerful. My voice can change the world. I have a voice. My voice is powerful. My voice can change the world. Change the world.
Shabbat Shalom.
Yes. Thanks for leading the clapping.